Hey, just before the video, because it's going to be a long one, I doubt everyone will make it to the end. If anyone has any service documentation, service manuals, schematics on this particular VCR or similarly adjacent model year or same model year versions, please let me know. Okay, on to the video. Look at this. Doesn't this just scream capacitors? So this interests me just because I love the look and the style of these from this era. It's very sad that other one I had with the VU meters, the hi-fi one, it had a bad video head, so it had to go. But this one has the remote. I don't know if this is the original remote because this has so much on it. This is massive. I mean, look at it. Look at it compared to the size of the VCR itself. Okay, well, according to this one image on Google Image Search, that appears to be the correct remote for this model, PV-4841. And this is one of those little mini versions when they started moving as much as possible off the front of the VCR and leaning on on-screen display, on-screen programming, remote control, everything. So this is the kind of VCR that if you don't have the remote, you're kind of screwed. You got a few switches. Interestingly enough, the input is still a physical switch. But other than the lack of VU meters and VFD, it is a hi-fi model. It does have MTS stereo. You get a few buttons on the front, channel up and down, power, play, pause, stop, eject, and record. I'm gonna open this up before I plug it in, I think. For those curious of the exact year, this was manufactured at the end of 1988. So I'm gonna say this is a 1988, maybe 89 era VCR. Probably model year 89 is a guess. Oh, that was a hell of a thing to take off. It's got these little sliding things. You gotta slide the top cover off. You also have to take off screws on the bottom that go into it. Typical Panasonic. Okay, I'll plug it into the TV and see what it does. TV is on. Got batteries in the remote. Okay. We got power. We got display. Exit program key. Program. Okay. There's a tape in it. Let's see if it'll eject the tape. What? Okay. So far, so good. Wow, that just slams it. Play. Not seeing anything on this tape. Let's fast forward. Okay. Maybe just a blank tape. Let me get a test tape. Do I have eject on this as well? No, it's only on the front. Okay. All right. I'll probably try rewinding this tape. Oh, it's playing automatically. Nope. Stop. Let's try rewind. So it's old enough that it doesn't fully thread the tape, but it's from 88, 89? I guess that was right at the threshold where some manufacturers were doing that and some weren't. Because I have a Hitachi, RCA branded Hitachi from pretty much that same time period, and it's got a 4-digit counter as well. You won't get the minutes and seconds unless it's loading the tape all the time, or threading the tape. Okay, play. Literally nothing. Fast forward. Oh, here we go. But it's blanking. which tells me that it's either got a dirty or damaged head. Let's get the CRT out. Okay, well, unfortunately this has a blue screen on the RF out and the AV out that just blanks. Oh, I had a picture there for a second. That blanks out any bad signal, so I can't really see it. Of course, it's looking great there, and if I do ×2, it looks good. But I mean, it's acting bad enough that one of the heads just isn't working at all. Let's try slow. Oh yeah, there we go. I'm gonna clean the head with some printer paper and isopropyl and see if I can get this going. But that's something that I don't like about this era of VCR, is that it does this blue screen when there's noise. Like the consumer is too dumb to deal with anything. Oh, we'll hide any dirt for you. Do you know how difficult this makes troubleshooting? It's just, oh, it's a blue screen. Just take it into a repair shop. So many people run into this, especially now with older VCRs. I can see myself sitting there. And it's just, oh, it's got a blue screen. The blue screen comes and goes. Why? What visual symptoms do you see on the screen? Because depending on what you see will help you determine what's wrong with it. So I think to get at this, I have to take this board up. Its compact design really doesn't make servicing very easy. I am not the first person in here. Looks like someone forgot to take this screw out when they lifted the board up and broke the board and just kind of soldered it back together. I see the telltale sign of someone who's been in here recapping. See those little blue marks on the capacitors? Either those are ones that were tested and were okay or replaced. But honestly, it's working, so I'd be shocked if this has never been recapped in the power supply. Well, I say working, I don't know if it's actually working yet. I think I might have just jinxed it. I went to go eject the tape, and I heard a motor run for a few seconds, and then it would just shut off. And now I don't hear the motor running, but it just shuts off after a few seconds. Huh. Oh, nope, never mind. This is user error. Lifting this board up, I pulled that out. What a fucking stupid... Really? Really? And like, look at this. This is the ACE head. I don't know if we call it ACE head in the VHS world, but the control track, audio, and audio erase head. And it is, the cable is soldered to the board up here, and it's soldered to that. So like, did they just hate their repair techs back in the day or something? This is horrible. And this I gotta figure out. Is this just stupid short? Yeah, that cable appears to go to the mode encoder switch, and then there's a little ribbon cable that goes off, and then I don't know if you can kind of see the ribbon cable go down there. I think it might go to things like the IR LED. Either way, that's all stuff related to mechanical function. Also, what the hell's up with this connector? Oh my god. What the fuck? Really? Okay. Yep, that's what it was. I just pulled the cable like an idiot. So what I did is it was tie wrapped very closely around here. And I let that tie wrap loose so I could plug that back in. At least that plugs in easily. Not sure why that would have been soldered, but I don't think that is related to any of the problems I'm seeing. The problems I'm seeing are video, which would be coming from this gray cable here, so I'm still going to go ahead and clean the video head. Just taking a look at the video heads before I go and clean them, just to make sure I don't see anything obvious. Sorry for the shaky camera here. Oh. No. No, I'm gonna have to review this, but that looks fucked. I have bad luck with these late 80s Panasonics. Is that one fucked too? There's no way both video heads are fucked. Maybe it... Okay, I'm gonna clean them and see if I can get anything out of this. Because with the special effects looking that clean, at least one of these ought to be good.
Levels.
Well, I'll be damned.
Patients with mild to moderate diabetes can control their metabolic abnormalities through diet and exercise alone. Diets should emphasize
Hi-Fi's cutting in and out, but
especially calories.
The pictures there looks fantastic.
Exercise is recommended for every patient.
Do fast forward scan. Oh yeah, rewind scan.
Contraindicated. Although goals for
Just unhappy Hi-Fi.
centered around achieving ideal body weight, it is now recognized that even modest weight reductions can improve lipid profiles and decrease the risk of cardiovascular disease.
Huh. Well, that's good news. I thought those heads looked hosed, but what do I know? I'm looking through a non-macro lens on a crappy cell phone. But yeah, it's working. Now, here's a... Well, this is not relevant to today, in today's day and age, but I wanted to hook the tuner up, right? Because if I hit stop here, and you just end up with like noise, right? So there's that going on, and the screen on here blanks out. Weirdly, it doesn't turn to a blue screen. It actually outputs the snow from the channels. So this is this TV blanking out, saying no signal. It only does a blue screen on the tape. Like, okay. Anyway, my channels are on UHF, so I went looking for the cable TV switch. Couldn't find it. There's no functions on the remote. I can call the channel. I can direct tune the channel. So let me go. Yeah, that's the other thing. This is a UHF channel that should be pretty strong, and it looks like trash. Like if I go, these should be crystal clear, and they are just bad. Like those are the strong ones. The weak ones aren't even coming through. So the tuner on this is a little fucky wucky. UHF works great, or sorry, VHF works great. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Wow, it actually wasn't plugged in. Okay. Yeah, so let's go back to that channel again. Is it nice and clear? No, it's not. It's slightly better. That just means this channel's actually very strong on UHF to the point where it was jumping about 5 inches from the coax. Maybe I should turn the gain down a little bit on that, or the power on that. So it's a little bit better, but it's still just bad. Oh, and it doesn't show the dang on-screen display if there's noise, because it can't get a good sync. But like, this should be strong and crystal clear. Oh, okay. No, I was expecting this to be newer than it is. Yeah, VHF and UHF. Duh. There's your UHF. Okay, so tuner's fine. Heads are fine. The only thing I don't quite understand still is, how do you switch between cable and broadcast TV in this? There, solved that problem. One of these dual direction Allen matching transformer things. I actually really like this for older TVs, because it's got a 75 ohm and a 300 ohm output, and a 75 and 300 ohm input. So you can just, you know, have whatever type of antenna split to both UHF and VHF on your TV. And now it's perfect. Okay, this is wild. So the add delete button pops up saying you can add or delete the channel, right? Okay. And then it's got this channel memory button, and it says press this and 1. So I'm going to press that and 1. Channel 10, add TV antenna system. Press 4 to shift. What? So now I can shift to KTV, cable TV, or community antenna TV. And then press 4 for auto set, or press channel memory and 1 to exit again. But like, oh, yep. No, I don't want to do that. Channel memory. Can I do channel memory 1 to get out now? I can. Okay. So I'll do channel memory 1. This is like archaic. Let's go. Oh, it is on. No. TV. Okay. Press 4 for auto set. So we'll let that do its thing. There we go. I got all my channels tuned in.
The more we lose, the more we sell.
I think this channel's starting to die. I think that SD, or the USB stick I have. Okay, side rant. These stupid things. These stupid memory sticks. Let's go to a channel that's not making music. Both died in different ways. This one's corrupt, this one doesn't even show up, or vice versa. Absolute garbage. Do not buy these. I bought them because they're on sale. I thought, you know, hey, reviews were okay. No. And what you saw there with that loading and glitching and stuff like that, oh look, it's the same brand and model being used on the 90s channel that's starting to crash and glitch out. This thing's pretty much dead, I think. It's pooch. These are shit. They're garbage. If anyone can recommend a reasonably priced one, I don't care about read speed or write speed. I just want it to be able to be left on and not die. Just sit there and slowly read all day. Some of these older ones, like this is a SanDisk from ages ago. That's a Sony with the missing case. This is an A-Data. That one's doing remarkably well. I think that's another Easy Store. Who makes that? I don't know. Whoever I said this was, it's the same brand. And I think I'm gonna a little concerned about my 80s sitcoms because they are on one of these. Maybe the 256 gig is better. Music videos is doing fine on Alexar. Really, it's just these Kingston pieces of crap. Anyway, side tangent, back to the VCR. So yeah, back to this thing. Service nightmare. Now that I have everything plugged into the back, I can't lift this circuit board. I have to unplug and unscrew everything, and then sit the circuit board above, plug everything back in again. There we go. Now the circuit board's up. I actually unplugged the UHF and VHF, and it's still picking up the stations. Like, what? VHF is a lot pickier. But damn, man. These are hot. Interesting. It does that sort of partial load because it's got the drop-down pinch roller. But it could have just done what JVC did and go against that head. Oh well. Let's try a different tape and see how the hi-fi holds up.
Message from Princess Leia. She was Luke's twin sister, though neither of them knew it at the time.
This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Actually, I don't know if you caught that, but there was quite a bit of up and down warble. Like it sounded like a very unstable. Let's check the belt. The capstan sounded very unstable, like the music was going up and down. Let me see if I can play a little bit of that without getting copyright here. Interesting. This thing is direct drive capstan. Now this belt is a little bit old, but honestly doesn't seem that bad. It's still stretchy. I think it's fine. Feels very smooth. It doesn't move super freely, but it moves very consistently. It doesn't feel like it would have a problem. Interestingly enough, this connection here is that connection to those black wires that was all soldered in a mess up top. So like someone's clearly been in here working on this thing. Belt. Alright, I did the thing you're not supposed to do, and I pulled the belt off the reel table here just to see if it would change, and the audio was still unstable. So that rules out this belt or any of this causing sort of unnecessary drag. But by doing so, I have sacrificed my Star Wars tape. Oh no! Oh nice. As soon as I powered it on, I wish I had filmed that. I was holding out like that much extra tape and it just sucked it in beautifully. No harm, no foul. So the question is, why do we have an unstable capstan motor? So there's servo circuitry that would drive it, and you know, Panasonic caps, that could be bad. And that would be my first thing to check. But there's also that weird soldering bodge job on the connector up top. I wish I knew the reason behind this. I'm assuming there was a bad connection here, and they brought it in and just, yeah, it's bad connection, just solder them in, get it going, get it fixed. It's probably the last time this thing's gonna get serviced. VHS is on its way out. Who cares? But look at that. I wonder if maybe one of these didn't quite go all the way, maybe didn't make a great connection. Should I just go in and reflow these? Yeah, this is definitely had work done on it. So this is, right here is where that black ribbon cable goes up on the board for the servo circuit. And yeah, someone has at least desoldered or reflowed this IC. I don't see any other work done in there, but someone was definitely in here trying to figure out a problem, whether or not they solved whatever that problem was, or if it was this one. So here's a look at the servo circuit from the underside. I see some capacitors there, which could be causing the problem. Not to say just jump right at capacitors, but come on, let's be real here. Or it could also be an issue with, say, maybe when somebody was working on this, like let's say when they soldered this, they maybe got the soldering iron a little bit too close to the outer part of the capstan flywheel, which is like encoded for that little encoder, right, for the servo circuitry. Apparently if you get the soldering iron hot enough, you can mess with that, break it. I'm going to come back to this one later, but I'm thinking that it won't take much effort to just pull these caps out and, you know, just spot check them. They're probably common enough values I can just pull them off a scrap machine and see if that solves the problem. All right, checked all the capacitors. What I've done is I've adjusted the tracking so that it's off. Oh, this is not what I should be sitting on. Anyway, so you can see that the speed is now vastly affecting the picture as it goes up and down. But what's interesting is I can make it so the picture is just complete noise, and it's not actually going to a blue screen like it was before. So I don't know what that blue screen was about. Anyway, yeah, turn the audio up just momentarily so you can hear how bad it is. So yeah, unsure if that's electronic or a mechanical fault with the capstan. I think I'm going to take the motor apart and just make sure that it's not like dried up grease or anything. I don't think that's the case. I'm thinking it's an electronic fault, but yeah, I think finding a service manual for this is probably going to be pretty difficult. All right, maybe I should just try and like follow this logically. So remember I was mentioning this little, I don't know if it's just like a reed sensor. No, it's like a magnetic sensor. It's like a little head, and it's reading the magnetic encoding on this outer band of the capstan flywheel here. So if I spin this, and I'm stealing this from 12 volt vids, it appears to be working. So that's good. So I think what I'm going to do is just sort of follow this through to the servo circuit to see where it's faulting, because it definitely, it's like it's dropping out or it's trying to latch onto another speed. I wish this had a real-time counter, because then I'd be able to tell if it's maybe the signal from the control track head that's dropping out. Would the speed change that quickly? Maybe I should clean that, because the video head was dirty. I wonder if the control track head is dirty. Let's just do that first before I continue. Interesting new problem has arisen. It almost sounds like the video head isn't spinning up when it should. To me, it should spin up as soon as you put it into play mode, not as the tape is touching it. Yep. And the video head didn't spin up until the end there. Okay, clean the mode switch. This is a genuinely hate-filled machine. So the, there it goes right there. The encoder switch is soldered onto this board that can't be removed because it has a ribbon cable going off to other stuff. So you have to desolder it here with everything hanging about and propped out of the way to get this out. So yeah, that looks fairly dirty. I'll give it a cleaning and see if that helps. Oh yeah, that was filthy. There, and there, and there. So I cleaned it with alcohol, threw some of this on there. I'll probably put a bit of fader lube. I think that helps protect it a little bit, the deoxide stuff. But man, like, this is from that time period where VCRs went from being extremely serviceable but unreliable to, well, not unreliable, but they needed service and they were serviceable, to the manufacturers going, you know what, they're getting a lot more reliable, so let's just jam everything in together. So on one end, you have this thing being a nightmare to service in every possible way. And on the other hand, you have the late 80s capacitor plague, which I haven't really run into on this yet, but I mean, this is from that era. So I can totally see why these are all just gone, because like, this sucks to work on. Oh, there it is. Before I resolder it back in, just checking the alignment, and I'll show a photo that I took before I took this out, but that little dot, that alignment dot, the tooth that corresponds to, oh, the focus keeps going in and out. The tooth that corresponds to it lines up with the notch on the right, which matches what I took before, so should be good there. Why, no, I won't be cleaning up the flux off of there. Why do you ask? Nope. After all that, it's still not working correctly. Let's see if I can hold this up while pressing play. Video head drum didn't start, so I'll play. Yeah, the video head drum servo is getting confused now. You want to know what the problem was? Do you want to know what the frickin' problem was? That. Focus. That connector right there. Because me lifting this circuit board up all the time, I've since cut a tie wrap that was tying this nice and tight, was pulling this wire slightly out of that connector, and this handles the motor for the head drum. So it probably lost, shh, quiet. It probably lost the feedback for the servo circuit and was just kind of bouncing around trying to figure out what's going on before faulting out. Man, what a lemon. And I still haven't figured out the stability problem. Sometimes it's fun to just look at the board to see if anything sticks out. This is the capacitors I was just checking in the vicinity of what I believe is the servo circuit. So that's me. This was someone else. Got some random balled up Solder blobs there. A lot of heat. Below here, there's like a 1/2 watt resistor that I think, yeah, it's spaced away from the board, but because the board is above it, the heat just rises. So that's a nice design. Someone is doing something there. This is bridged and looks newer, and I have no idea what's going on with that. It's definitely had some work done. This is from whoever took the power supply out to fix it. Oh, didn't quite solder that one in. And this is the ribbon cable, I believe, that goes to it. So, yeah, still not sure what's going on with the servo. Someone has resoldered the servo cable, probably because it was making bad connection, maybe to try and fix it. Maybe they tried that and went, I don't know, man, just get a new one. And that's what condemned it. I don't know if that was the same time as this power supply being checked. I mean, someone else could have gone through exactly what I'm going through right now and just given up on it in the exact same way. Just taking a little think break here, and I found this archive of a Quebec newspaper, and it has the VCR here for 800 Canadian dollars in 1988. December 15th, 1988. So yeah, 88, 89 model year. I guess it was pretty featureful at the time. But, it represents the direction that electronics went that I don't like. Reliance on the remote and difficulty to service. So that's one of the drive pulses going to one of the phases of the motor. And those little blips, those little spikes, seem to coincide with the instabilities. So that's the first phase, pin 27. So I looked at the data sheet of this chip. Oh no, sorry, it's pin 28. I think 26 is another one. Yeah, there's the glitches. Analog scope is a little bit harder to see just because of how slow this is, but you can see the spikes show up there. Check out those persistent phosphors too. So unfortunately, I don't have a schematic or service manual, really anything for this model. Smarter people than me tossed it in the trash years ago. But I did find the data sheet for the 3826 capstan motor driver. This is the inside of it here for those who care. Here's a description of all the different inputs and outputs and sort of a simplified diagram of their circuit. And then here's some specs. So VCC, maximum voltage for the motor supply, input and output, maximum current for the motor, all sorts of other specs that we can go and check. Here's a sample schematic. EC and ECR, best I can tell, is just a comparative circuit, so you can control the amount of torque. So I've noticed that ECR is a reference, it's around 2.4 volts all the time. EC will change when it's changing modes. Not really sure where that comes from. EDS is, I guess E is the motor or the element or something you could say. Anyway, direction and stop. So in the, I was measuring this. It basically goes like 0, there's 3 different voltages. They can go in 0 volts, 2.5, and 5 volts. Depending on if you're going forward, I think it's 0. Stop is 5 and backwards is 2.5. I can't remember. Anyway, this seems to check out and the directions are working fine. I'm not really sure what controls the speed, because obviously this motor on this VCR drives everything. It drives eject, it loads the tape into the head, it does the capstan, it does the reel table. It's literally just like the only motor in this design. So you change the speed and you change the direction. So the direction change happens here, but the speed is something that I'm a little confused at. And I'm not sure where it gets that information from. I thought it would be torque command, but these really don't. They only change, EC only changes when the VCR is changing modes. But then once it's changed into a different mode, like from play to fast forward scan, the voltage stays the same. It's only during the transition that it seems to change. What the heck? This is an EP recording. And it's perfect. What?
The design of meal plans should be individualized according to the patient's age,
and this one's perfect.
Lifestyle, medication regimen, treatment goals,
what?
And personal and cultural characteristics.
Is this just a bad tape? Is this another video of me chasing my tail and learning a bunch of stuff about a section of the VCR just for it to be the simplest thing? I've never, I guess if it's not getting a clean tracking pulse, we could see that where it's just glitching. Those little spikes, no, that doesn't make any sense. Why would this tape be doing that? I'm gonna grab some others. I think now that I've proven that it actually kind of works, I'm okay using some other tapes. I think all my test tapes are packed away somewhere. Oh, never mind, found another. Yeah, okay, it's not happy. Let's get the on there. Oops. Yeah. It's unhappy.
But we found something very similar.
Spikes, but they're smaller. I don't. Is this not in hi-fi? Huh. Okay, this I think is that PAL test tape I recorded a while ago. So let's see what the servo looks like with that. Oh. I wonder if it's just not locking into a tracking pulse. Because this is definitely not locked in because it's PAL. If I fast forward. Oh yeah, you're gonna get nothing. Nothing out of this. So, more evidence that someone's been in here. This little twisted pink and white wire is coming from the lower portion of the audio and control track head and is containing the control track information. That little orange one, I don't know what that is. But anyway, it goes up to this really nasty looking connector. And look at that. I don't think those are shorting, but man, oh man, are they close. And if you look at it on the top side here, where is it? It's that mess right there. I don't get it. This is another EP tape. Perfect hi-fi, perfect stability. Yep, so it's only SP tapes. The EP tapes, I've just gone through a whole bunch of them. EP tapes play just fine. SP tapes vary depending on how bad they are. This seems like the commercial releases are worse than some of the like smaller, lower budget, smaller production house tapes. But all SP has some sort of noise in it and some sort of problem. So it's probably a capacitor somewhere in the servo circuitry here. So I need to think on this a little bit more. I don't have a schematic. I don't even really have a schematic of a similar VCR. I've looked up all the 48 series, the 1988 series, like PV-48 Panasonics. Nothing online other than like, you know, buying it, which Let's be real, this thing's not worth that. Couldn't find a 47 series too. I mean, I guess what I could do is look up these ICs in the circuit, because that might help me nail it down. Well, unfortunately, no luck with the other 3 ICs. There's information out there, or partial information. So like this one says, hey, yeah, we've got this chip, but not really. Got partial matches, but the website's set up to match Google with the results. The rest of this is all just that bull crap where they're reselling overstock parts. Oh yeah, we've got this part. Well, what does it do? Well, I don't know, but we have it. Ask us for a quote. All right, back at it. Turns out what I was talking about earlier with that IC, I found a schematic for a newer Panasonic VCR that uses the same capstan drive components, which apparently they used for quite a few years. And I was completely wrong. That was actually feedback from the coils that I'm measuring. So there's weird little spikes coming from the coils. So I thought, well, maybe it is a mechanical issue, and maybe, you know, it's running into difficulty, and it's you're seeing those little spikes because mechanically it's being stopped. So I tried with my fingers to create some resistance, but what that does is the coil feedback, the little spikes on the coils just increase, right? They increase with sort of the resistance from the tape or whatever. Those little spikes don't seem to play into account. So I just wanted to open this up, and I think I took the capstan apart the hard way. Yeah, I took the whole top cover off, which meant I had to take the pinch roller off, and to take the pinch roller off, I had to take the dang front loading tray off. So we're really going deep here. But really all I see is these little, not exactly sure what those are. Maybe some sort of transistors. Either way, I mean, if those are bad, it's game over. Don't really see any sort of passives that I could check under here, so I'm going to put this back together. Since I didn't film me taking it apart, I'm going to film me putting it back together. So first off, there's this top bearing here, this white piece of plastic that unscrews. Then there's these 3 screws that get removed, and there's actually 2 washers that slip on the capstan, one here and one up top, to kind of hold it in place. Keep dirt, I think, is the main thing from getting up inside there. But yeah, and then at this point you can just slide, really at any point in time you can slide the capstan out, but then you're going to end up with these 2 little white nylon slip-on washers that you need to put back on when you slide it in. Now take this, it sits like this. This is actually very similar to a Mitsubishi that I looked at from a few years later. An early 90s Mitsubishi. I think they must have licensed this design or whatever. So this rests on this little ramp here, because that's what lifts and lowers it. And then there's this final little piece to hold it all together, and it's got a little clip. Let's get some focus going here. You see that little clip? See that little bit there? That's what holds it on. So that's what you're going to pry open to take this off. So this will just slide on top and click. There we go. Now it's back together. And now to put the front loading mechanism back on, you need to connect those wires right there into this little connector. And these are those stupid little push-in connectors. And there's a little cap that goes on. You know what's funny? I did it as a YouTube short because I'm a moron. I should have done a real video on it, but I had that other similar era, I think it was like a year older, Panasonic forehead hi-fi with the beautiful VU meters, and it's actually the same one that Maritime Girl has. And it had a bad power supply caps. I recapped it, and then the video head was bad. So one of the fields was kind of wonky on it. And I thought, well, when's the next time I'm ever going to run into a similar era Panasonic VCR with good heads? Well, that's what this is. this would have been the perfect donor to get that one working. And that one had a full VFD on the front, and then I could have probably used this remote on it, but oh, you know what? This is the sort of stuff that turns you into a hoarder, because if I had just kept everything I've ever had in my life, then things would have been fine and I could just, keep renting warehouses. So I think part of how these bare wire connectors work is that the wires are supposed to be tinned, but these are stranded and they're just bare. I mean, there's a bit of solder there, but look at the one on the left, pin 1, the one with the stripe. That just splays out everywhere when you try and put it back. All right, hear me out. I'm looking at something that somebody else has tried to fix and walked away from. They were smarter than I am. So let's look at the evidence. Somebody has reflowed the solder on this IC. So I finally found a schematic to understand what this here is doing. This is the schematic for a Panasonic PV-4641, which is a much newer VCR, but it's basically the same design. So this is the IC that I was looking at, and it has outputs on, what is it, 3, 4, and 5? Yeah, 3, 4, and 5, which head up to this capstan coil drive, which is basically 3 PNP transistors, like drive transistors inside. And then these go and feed the coils, power the coils, and then the ones that I was measuring are actually tied to the outputs here as feedback to this. And they go back on pins 1, 28, and 26, which are the drive. See, its arrow's going this way though. So there's drive outputs here, but also here. I'm still not entirely too sure how this is supposed to work. But regardless, if you have a intermittent or loose connection going to the motor, you could get those little spikes, right? Because you're driving voltage to the motor, and we're seeing those little waveforms as it rotates. But we're driving it with 14 volts power. So really, if this load momentarily disconnects, you would see that little spike, and that would explain why it sounds like from the audio is dipping. It's not speeding up, it's slowing down when those spikes occur. So it's an intermittent connection to here. So what the previous person who worked on this did is they reflowed all the connections for those janky wires going to the capstan motor board. They reflowed, let me scroll up here. They reflowed the connections here. After that, they went and looked at it and said, you know what? It's really not worth the cost to repair. Just buy a new one. Well, based on that, I just went and checked with the scope the connections down here going to the motor coils, and I see the same spikes. So it's not an intermittent connection going from there to here. I'm changing what I think it is, my gut instinct from when I didn't know what I'm talking about to now. I'm thinking it's this transistor pack. I'm thinking there's some sort of intermittent connection that's going on here, either like a short, I guess probably a short. What's interesting is it occurs on all 3 fields, right? It's not just one, it's all 3. So it really seems like it's this guy. I'm just gonna go like that. Yeah. Circuit boards love it when you do this. I'm changing my mind again. So that's what the previous person who worked on this thought. But then, as a joke, I was just rubbing my finger on the circuit board to be like, yeah, circuit boards love it when you do that. And I had a thought. When I interrupt the signal coming from the control track head, this defaults to a slow SLP speed. Let me demonstrate. It's slowing down to SLP when it loses sync with that pulse. So then I thought, let me mess around with this while monitoring the coil to see if I see more of those spikes. And wouldn't you know it, I do see them. Check this out. When I mess with the control track, oh, hold on, I slipped off the pad there. Okay, when I mess with the control track, things go haywire. So I'm thinking it's a control track pulse issue. On an SLP tape, we're not seeing it because the implication of losing the control track is a lot less noticeable, right? Because you're going from servo lock to servo not locked. But again, you're still matching the speed, right? It's still SLP speed. Whereas anytime it's playing an SP tape and it momentarily loses lock on the signal, it doesn't know what speed to play back and it defaults to SLP. So what we're seeing here is little dropouts in the control track circuit, is my theory. I've been wrong many times so far in this video. I think before I go any further, I'm just going to clean up the solder job here because this is nasty. The wires were nasty going into the connector. I kind of separated them and cleaned them up, but this is also very nasty. I think I'm going to eliminate this connector altogether. These are just garbage. Maybe it's got a bad connection in there, intermittent. Honestly, removing the wires from this is such a pain in the butt, it's probably easier just to desolder them at this point. Well, it wasn't that. Kind of wasn't expecting it to be that, but I figured it was worthwhile to clean up that mess there anyway. I've just soldered the wire in directly. I think I'm going to call this video for now. I found a block diagram sort of explaining capstan servo basics in this wonderfully useful book. I cannot recommend this book enough. It's just interesting to a weirdo like me. But, you know, some things like the 360 hertz coming from the capstan motor, and then the frequencies that you would expect. You have your 30 hertz being fed in from the control head amplifier, but you also have your 3.58 megahertz oscillator that derives a 30 hertz signal. I found all that on that chip. So I was measuring DC voltages, I was finding the different signals and went and put all that. And then I realized, like, it's not telling me anything. I'm able to see that, yes, it is in fact a capstan servo circuit, but really, I haven't found the actual problem still. I even went as far as removing every electrolytic capacitor from the entire servo circuit and checking them, and any that were even slightly out of spec, I just tried tacking on a known good one. Didn't solve anything. It's weird how it'll play some tapes well and some not. Here's the pile of tapes that it just absolutely will not play well. Mostly commercial movies. And the drum tuning video. These are ones that it looks to play fine. Like if I'm watching the tape, it sounds fine, it looks fine, but I can see small spikes in the motor coil. And then this is the pile of tapes that play great. No problems. Smooth waveforms when I measure them. And I mean, they're commercial releases. Some are EP recordings. This one was the one that was giving me problems at the beginning of this video, and now it seems to play fine. So that's a weird one. More EP recordings and Little Shop of Horrors, which this tape came out in 1987. So this would have come out basically a year before this VCR was sold. And this plays just fine.
Test pilot.
I even went as far as to see if maybe something like macrovision would be a factor between the tapes that play well and don't, even though that's something in the video circuitry in AGC and should have nothing to do with the capstan, and it was not a factor. Some of the tapes that it plays fine have macrovision, and some that doesn't play fine don't have macrovision. I did test recordings on this, on all the speeds, played it back on this VCR and another VCR on all the speeds. It works just fine. It's not hi-fi. There's no rhyme or reason that I can find. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going to leave this video here. If anyone has any recommendations for things to look at in here, or knows where I can find service documents that aren't $50 US. There's one on eBay that's not even for this model, but a similar model, I think the 4800, and it's $30 US plus $20 US shipping for paper, which, you know, $50 US, I guess that'd be around 70 something odd Canadian. And that's just, I'm not doing that. But yeah, anyway, I hope you at least found some of this interesting. I went into different things on this, took them apart, looked at stuff for your entertainment. Anyway, see ya.